What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we got to talk about more potential bad Xbox news in Perfect Dark. Now, I want to say this pretty early on this video. I don't mean for this to be bag on Xbox week. I've said this before. Ultimately, with me as a content creator, with me as a person, outside of freaking YouTube, I just want good games. I care about the people that make games. I think I probably care more than most people. I care about the preservation. I care about the actual talent themselves. So, there's things there, but I don't want this to be like, oh, okay, well, Alex suddenly has this anti-Xbox approach. I just want good games, and I want, say, something like Tango Gameworks to not be shut down. I want Perfect Dark to come out, and when it does come out, I want it to be in the best condition possible. Okay, so I just want to kind of throw that out there now. Also, another thing to remember, at least from what I'm seeing online, it seems like this story is actually a little bit old, but people are kind of resurfacing it. It's the first time that I have personally seen it, so I just wanted to, speak on it. But it's kind of odd because it did actually come way before what happened yesterday. Now we're putting it after, so it looks like back-to-back terrible days for Xbox. So it comes from Jeff Grub, and he said again a little while ago, it sounds like it's in a very rough state. It doesn't sound like it's really come together in any way. And then he said, also heard Jez say the same. And then later down in the comments, somebody said, well, Jez has actually said the opposite, and that's not true. I think 11 days ago, it would be a miracle if it comes out in any kind of good quality, and that was from their podcast. So again, it's not exactly 2 weeks old. It's a little bit less than 2 weeks old, but it's still a little bit old regardless. So still not great, and something I want to talk about in this video. Somebody's got to pull it together over there, okay? I believe that these people are talented enough and capable enough to make good games. But I'm seeing a reoccurring pattern here. We talked yesterday about 343, and we can keep throwing other studios out there. I've seen more and more concern for Ninja Theory, which I'm starting to get more concerned about ever since I saw other people where it's yeah, if Hellblade 2 for whatever reason doesn't do well, which it very possibly could not do well, by the way, which would be sad, but what happens to them? What happens to Double Fine? I oftentimes forget that they're owned by Xbox, but it's they are not what I would consider a AAA studio, more more indie in spirit and even maybe more indie in structure. Are they okay? Are they going to be safe going forward? I don't know. You can keep throwing these studios out. With Perfect Dark, it honestly sounds more like a Redfall kind of situation, and I'm not saying as bad as Redfall. Let me, I guess, continue my train of thought. With Redfall, what was the big problem, at least that we heard kind of afterwards, is that Xbox literally didn't pay attention to it, right? They were so hands-off that things were just spiraling out of control, and they didn't even know that things were spiraling out of control, okay? So when I say, somebody in there's got to pull it together, I mean, look, you do have to give teams creative freedom, but at the same time, you can't have teams do this. So yes, this is a rumor, and it's a rumor from two different people, and you can trust them or not trust them, and they've gotten plenty of things right, and they have gotten a couple things wrong. But regardless, right, if this is happening, somebody in there has got to be a little bit more hands-on, while at the same time, respecting that kind of creative freedom. It's a tough line, I'm sure, right? You want to give them creative freedom, but you don't want to be so hands-off that they just can't pull it together. And also, again, I'll say this. Regardless if this is 11 days old, regardless if this is 1 day old, or if this were to happen, say, tomorrow, it's all around the same time. And, it's gotta be fixed. Because you could just kind of look at yesterday as a shock thing, right? Where it's hey, if you don't pull it together, you can see what happens. And this is what people I think are saying about this story, again, that's a little bit older, is that, okay, so we're gonna shut down a team that, yeah, maybe Hi-Fi Rush didn't sell unbelievably well, maybe Ghostwire Tokyo, which I don't really see a lot of people saying. Ghostwire Tokyo, I highly doubt that game sold all that well either, but they put out games, functional games that didn't take too long to make, and, again, as I talked about yesterday, I really like Ghostwire Tokyo. I like it more than most people, and Hi-Fi Rush I freaking adore. It's one of my favorite games the last 5 or so years or whatever. So you shut them down, but you have 343 that's not doing much with the most iconic character and franchise in Halo. You got these guys over here doing God knows what with Perfect Dark. And I mean, look, Crystal Dynamics is not really in there. They from what I understand, right, they chose them kind of as partners, so there is some sort of like deal worked out there. Here's like the pro con of like that situation. If something were to happen to Perfect Dark and Xbox steps in and say, okay, well, there's going to be some layoffs or there's going to be some studio closures or whatever, from my understanding is they can't really touch Crystal Dynamics, but so that's the pro. You can't just go in and shut them down. The con is, well, if you end that contract, as we've actually seen multiple times in the gaming industry, these studios will like pump up, right? Like they'll get talent to be able to fulfill a contract. And if a contract expires or if a contract is terminated mid-contract, they will fire those people. We have seen that with multiple teams over the last, say, 12 plus months, right? So the pro is they can only touch their own team. They can't touch Crystal Dynamics. The con is if they cancel the contract and say something really bad happens to Perfect Dark, Crystal Dynamics most likely will lay off however many people were helping to work on that game. So it's, I don't know, like something needs to change. Something needs to change. You got to be, I guess, more hands-on where it's necessary. See, something like Tango Gameworks, you should have just leave them alone, and you probably did leave them alone, and look at what they did. A thing like Ninja Theory, I would never want meddling there. A thing like Double Fine, I would never want meddling there. You got to let some of these creatives cook. But at the same time, you know, if things are not coming together, see, there's a difference between like a game coming out and being really creative and maybe just not hitting with a wider audience. Like you could actually probably predict that, but it's something different to have a game that's supposed to kind of be for, you know, a wide audience. Perfect Dark, I imagine, is supposed to be a game that sells and does really, really well, right? And the difference is when a game is just struggling conceptually, like they can't even get it off the ground running. That's not, I mean, we just kind of skipped over that in this entire video. So number one, I guess we're not seeing it for a while. And number two, kind of piggybacking off of that, this game is years, still, it's years and years away, right? Because if nothing is coming together, as they're saying, if nothing is coming together, how can you possibly, you know what I mean? Like you're going to put that thing out in front of people as a trailer or gameplay or release it? Yeah, right. So it's probably another 2 to 4 years that we're looking at for this game, which is sad. And it's again, not great management. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.